Jai Shri Krishna. Welcome to program number 4 on Bhagavad Gita discussions. This is a series, a 13-part series, in which we would be exploring chapters 1 to 3 of Bhagavad Gita, discussing the verses and the philosophy contained therein. This is a production of the International Gita Forum Caribbean and IETV. We continue today from chapter 2, verse 16, and again we have our consultant to International Gita Forum Caribbean, Pandit Vickramaditya Maharaj, who will be going through these verses with us and discussions that are generated therefrom. Panditji.
Right. The last time we were here, we stopped at verse 16 that says, Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. See the last word there, sataha? That is important. Because sataha, when you explain it, it means that the world does exist, but it is not permanent. It exists. The verse in the translation of the Gita says, that which is unreal has no existence. But the word sataha means it does exist, but it is going away. It is going with time. He calls it asat. Asat means it's temporary. He doesn't call it mithya. Mithya means non-existent. No, yeah. It's not mithya, it is asat. It is existing, but its existence is gradually being eaten away.
And it's going to change.
It's going to change.
Yeah.
Just as we are asat in this world. We are changing all the time. So we continue from verse 17. Avinashi tu tadavidi yena saravamidam tatam vinashamabhyasyasya na kashtit karatu marhasi. Everything in this creation, Arjun, is pervaded by a force. That force is indestructible. Everything that it pervades over, it oversees, has an expiry date. He says, and none can have put into effect the destruction of that force. That force is permanent. People have tried, in our scriptures we have so many people tried to conquer God. We cannot do it. Nobody could do it. He is there permanent. The clouds are temporary. The sky is permanent. The clouds will cause different signs and things to appear in the sky. But once the clouds move, the sky remains in its origin. In the same way with life in this universe. When everything is gone, that which remains is the source of all life. That is what's going to remain back. Antavanta ime deha nityasayokta sharirinaha anashino prameyasya tasmadyudhasva bharataha. The indweller. He uses many terms to describe the Atma, the soul.
Yeah.
Sometimes he calls it the soul, sometimes he calls it the Atma, sometimes he calls it the indweller. It all depends on the frame of mind Arjun was in at that specific moment. He didn't want to use, let us say, religious phrases to complicate Arjun. So he calls it the indweller. That indweller is eternal, Arjun. Don't worry about him, worry about you. You are not eternal. But the indweller is. It is indestructible. It is immeasurable. Stand up and fight, O Bharat. You represent so much in this battle. Do not worry about the internal Arjun. The internal Arjun is going to survive. The internal in all these soldiers who are going to die will survive. Not these fellas in front of you. Ya'enam avititi hanataram yashchainam manyate hatam ubautav na bijanati nayamahanti nahanyati. He says, he who believes that the Atma could commit a crime, and he who believes the Atma causes you to commit a crime, you are two fools, Arjun. You are both ignorant. Because the Atma has nothing to do with that. The Atma doesn't slay anybody, nor does the Atma cause anybody to be slain. Atma is not to be blamed for that. Karma is to be blamed for that. Destiny is to be blamed for that. As a matter of fact, in chapter 9 of the Gita, there is a verse when he talks about Prakriti, nature. Nature must take its course. He says, this verse also has an interpretation that says, a man says to himself, boy, look, I have so much money and I lost everything. I gone. I lost all my fortune. Even though the human is different from wealth, because he's attached to it, he's associating with it, he believes he is ruined. The same thing with the Maya of the world, the attachments of the world. The attachment is what is causing this ignorance to exist in Arjuna. He was so attached to the Guru that whatever the Guru tell him to do, he never questioned it, he just do it. So with that attachment, he is now confronted with the thought that he will have to fight this man. And that is throwing him totally off. Lord Krishna says, Na jayate mriyate va kadachinayam bhutva bhavitavan bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yama purani na hanyate hanyamane sharire. He says, Arjun, Lord Krishna now takes it up a little notch higher, because that is how you have to,
verse, yeah.
that is how you have to help people when they're in trouble. You cannot keep them at that level and think you could solve the problem. You have to bring them out, and bring them out don't mean you carry them down. Bringing them out means you're uplifting them and you're pulling them out. If somebody's sinking, you can't sink them further for them to come out. You have to pull them out. So Lord Krishna is pulling him out by saying to him, the Atma is not born. The Atma does not die. It comes into being, Arjun, and it ceases to exist in a particular body, but it is not born with the body. It is unborn. It is eternal. It is constant. It is ancient. It is not killed when the body is slain.
This is a very important verse. Many times when we do Bhagavad Gita readings, especially on funerals and in deaths and so, this issue of the soul is one that we need to pay particular attention to. What Krishna Bhagavan is telling us here, the soul is never born, nor does it ever die. It is eternal, unchanging. And I think it's important that we wrap our minds around this. So the body is perishable, Panditji, but the soul is not. And while the body comes into being at conception, it starts to change as within the mother's womb. Then it comes as a child, youth, old age, if they live till old age, and then ultimately death. The body is changing, but the soul throughout this whole process doesn't change. It existed before conception, and it will exist beyond death.
The soul is not going to change. The soul that exists in my body, if I do not realize God, the identical soul will go into another body. And some people have been faced with that dilemma.
So that when we say, let's say I use myself so we don't call anybody a name. So Pandit Maniedeo dies. What dies?
When I do your funeral, I will tell you.
But you can't tell me, I won't be there. The body dies, but the soul itself remains and is untouched by this experience.
Go back to 2 or 3 verses. Maniedeo dies. But the principle he lived by and the teachings that he lived by continues.
And the soul that was...
We reach soul yet.
Yeah.
We reach soul yet.
Okay, sure.
The principle that we live by, that will continue into your spouse and your children. Now, that which is unreal has no existence, which is the physical body. But the principles remain.
No, I think it's important our viewers understand this. How could you say that I have no existence? You could feel me, you could touch me. The concept of unreal is that which will not last. And if you think of it in those terms, almost everything we see is ultimately unreal because it is changing.
Because it has an expiry date.
Yeah.
That's why we say it's unreal.
It is not everlasting. The only everlasting entity there is Bhagwan himself. All these are manifestations, everything that we see ultimately will end. And when you think of it that way, just for a moment, I have had reason during my career so far, Panditji, to counsel people, to talk to people. And two brothers come in, teeth, gnashing their teeth, angry at each other. That Pandit, he taken my land. If you look at the battle itself, everything. But think about it, what's our average lifespan? 70, 80 years? And we talk about my land. How long is it your land? How long is it your land really? And if you start taking life in this concept, as he says too, we need, note, Arjun is being encouraged to fight. Ultimately fighting for land, in a human context.
In the beginning, that was the intention.
Yeah, right, to get your kingdom back.
Yeah.
But what we are trying to get across is the fact that when you look at many things in this world, ultimately, if we are not careful, we could be making mistakes in that we attach ourselves, become so attached to things that are impermanent. And even within one lifetime, something that's important to me now may no longer be important 1 year down the road. So we need to really assess, and this is where knowing that which is real, there's that prayer, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamisoma Jyotirgamaya, Mityurma Amritam Gamaya. These are tremendous values that are being taught in these areas. Panditji.
So we'll go over this verse again, verse 20. Najayate mriyate va kadachinayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yama purane nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The Atma is neither born nor does it die. It comes into being and it ceases to be. But that is only affecting the body. It does not affect the Atma. When the Atma enters the body, it gives life to the body. When the Atma leaves the body, it gives death to the body. So the changes affects the body, not the Atma. It is unborn, it is eternal, it is constant, it is ancient, it is not killed when the body is slain. Lord Krishna further goes on to say, Veda vinashina manityam ya enam ajannam abhyayam kattamasa purushaha partha kam ghatayati yahantikam. He says, those who understand or those who recognize the Atma as indestructible, it is eternal, it is unborn and changeless. If you know that, how can he slay? You cannot slay the Atma. You cannot harm it in any way or part. And nor does the Atma cause anybody to commit an action. The Atma on its own has no karma, no action. It is actionless. The actions take place with the body, with the senses,
in an embodied
nature,
state.
in an embodied position. Then it's filled with action. But on its own, it performs no action. None, absolutely none. The Atma is free from ego. Atma doesn't have ego. Atma cannot choose. Well, it had a choice up to a point which body it wants to go into after. But that choice is made based on whatever karma was performed by me. So when my Atma leaves this body of Vikram, wherever it goes, it carries the traits of the actions that were performed by me when it was in me. So a part of me goes into it. Vasa sijirana yataha bihaya Navana grahanati naro parani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnya anyani sanyati navana dehi. Most beautiful
explanation, yeah.
When do we throw away clothes? Old clothes. When we get new ones. When we discard the old curtains. When we get new ones. So this verse says, as a man discards old clothes and puts on new ones, so the embodied, the soul, casting off worn out bodies, enters others that are new. Now let us explain that very carefully. If the soul discards old bodies, the question is, what is an old body? Is an old body 70 years, 100 years? No. An old body is determined by the sanchita karma. The karma that you have performed in the past, you have missed one or two things and you come here to burn it out. That could take 1 second, that could take 1 minute, that could take 100 years. So age in our calculation, this is not what Lord Krishna is talking about. Not human years. He's not talking about human years at all. That once your karmas are burnt out, the time for the soul to move on, it moves on. So this is why you find some people die very early in life, some people praying to die and just cannot die.
Yeah.
Right? The same thing with the snake. A snake has a pretty skin. Some snakes have beautiful skin. Really pretty. And yet, there comes a time when he discards it. So, what does he discard? The old skin. The old skin gone. He don't go back to look for it to see if it's there. What you do it is your business. He moves on. He continues on his journey. The same thing with the soul. When he moves out of this body, he doesn't remember, oh gosh, I was in Vikram, let me go back in him. No, he moves on. It's a one-way journey. The Jiva Atma knows exactly where it is going from here. And when that is established, where he is going from here, then he discards this body. Then this body becomes an old body. Anything you have to say, Pandit?
No, it's interesting. Okay. Let's proceed. Yeah.
Nainama chindanti shastrani, nainama dahati pavakaha, na chainama klidayantyapo, na sochati yamarutaha. Weapons cannot cut the soul, harm the soul. Fire cannot burn it. Water cannot wet it. Nor can the wind dry it. In my experiences, I've heard people say, when I die, I do not want to cremate because I can't take that fire. You won't be feeling it. You have nothing in it to feel. And trust me, if I light it, you won't feel it for long. It could be more than 2-3 seconds. I mean, you're carrying this I and mine with you. Even when you die, you're carrying that with you. You cannot let it go. I don't want to bury in the ground. Worm go eat me. You understand? Suppose I wake up in the night. Listen, if they bury you in the ground, you won't wake up in the night. You're going to be dead. Be smart. It's like a long time. When you fall in a coma, we think you're dead and we bury you. No.
No, but this is an interesting area you're raising also. Hindus have been defined as people. One definition of Hindus was people who burn their dead. In initial societies and so, one of the explanations or definition of a Hindu is someone who burns their dead. There's a reason we burn or don't bury. Because this ties in with the idea that the body is finished. On death, there is no coming back for that body. There is no return. So there is no waiting for something to happen in the future with regard to that body. Now, I don't necessarily want to do comparisons of philosophies, but because I am here to discuss our philosophy. But it's important that we understand it. So, generally, in the initial days, Hindus didn't burn, for example, in Trinidad, because legally we couldn't.
It was not possible legally.
We couldn't legally burn. Cremations couldn't be done. In fact, when we look at the laws, Pandit, I don't know if you're aware, this is an interesting thing. It's only recently I was looking at our birth certificate, and I would have been considered a bastard child because Hindu marriages weren't recognized. So the legal issues are one thing, but we're not really discussing that. But philosophically, Hindus cremate because it's cleaner if you think about it. Maybe at some point in one program we can discuss this further, but as we're talking about the soul, and there is so much misconception about the soul and death, after death ceremonies. That's why when you were discussing weapons cannot cut it, or they can fire, burn it. You know, people have this idea that you have a devil who will come with a pitchfork with a long tail and burn you. Who he burning? What can he burn? Now, this might sound as a critical comment, but you know, people are afraid of the fires of hell. That's not a Hindu concept.
No, it's not.
There is nothing Hindu about that. There are no fires of hell from our perspective. And this week I don't think we should break the trend, but these are issues we'll take notes of, and in specific programs we will address it going forward. But the idea of death and after death, so that's another good point. When I do after death ceremonies, I'm not doing it for the body.
No.
I'm doing it for the soul. And these, I would suggest, Panditji, that we proceed, but these verses give rise to these questions.
A lot of questions.
Yeah, and sometimes because we live in cosmopolitan societies and we expose to different philosophies, many times, I mean, I'll just share this and then we proceed. I find it amazing, even when I hear a Pandit say, "May he rest in peace." How does that arise?
That's not a Hindu concept.
Hinduism, Hindu idea of life and death, it's cyclical. I am born, I live my life, I die. My soul attains another body and I am born again. And I continue, and this cycle continues. So it's not like as some others believe, you have one life to live, you're born, you do whatever you do, and if you accept some philosophy, then you are sure of heaven. And if you don't, then you go for hell forever, brother. Now, that is not Hindu thinking at all. We're not telling people what to believe. Everybody is free to believe what they want. But the concept of grace of God too, think about it. If God is a being who is truly gracious and truly forgiving, if I don't accept something in this life, are you telling me God condemns me for eternity? And I want to claim that represents hope?
Doesn't.
Hinduism, Krishna Bhagwan, Sri Krishna, we talk of the soul here, become our Gaman, life after life. We have repeated opportunities for us to develop ourselves, repeated opportunities in which we will make mistakes also, and have the opportunity to correct it. And this again, as we talk about the soul, it ties in with the concept. I would just think about it for today. There is no unpardonable sin in Hinduism that puts the grace of God outside my reach for all eternity. That is not the definition of a loving God. Panditji.
Right. And this concept of cremation, history has shown that even the Native Americans, they would cremate their dead. Only certain people they buried. They didn't bury everybody. When the chief died, he was cremated. It's documented. It's proven. Yeah. It's proven. And I have a document home that we shouldn't be discussing this, but you know what? It's just for information purposes. That Italy, the head of the church, have now written a document and sent it to all the churches in the world that they are faced with this great dilemma. People dying too fast. And they have no choice now but to cremate. They have no choice. So what they are doing, they are appealing to the churches that, okay, listen, you have to cremate, we can't object again. But maintain something from our tradition. At least bury the ashes.
Let's continue this discussion. We have to take a break at this point,
Okay.
and we'll continue. We'll return in a minute or two. Welcome back, Jai Shri Krishna. You are viewing the Bhagavad Gita discussions with Pandit Vickramaditya Maharaj and myself, and we are on chapter 2 at a very interesting, important point of the soul, where Bhagwan Shri Krishna is addressing Arjuna. Panditji.
Nainama chendanti shastrani, nainama dahati pavaka, na chainama kledayantyapo, na sochati yamarutaha. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, you cannot take a knife and carve out the soul, or carve it into any shape that you want. Fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, and the wind cannot dry it. Now the human body is made up of elements. That is what makes this body, elements. Which of the elements doesn't change? Only Akash. Now, if we bring a Havan Kund and put it in this room and fill it up with nice Google and thing and light it, what is going to happen to the wall? You tell me. The wall going to get stained. You will see the effects on the wall.
Yeah.
But will the stain or the smoke affect the space in the room? No. The space remains the space. Because the fire was attached to the wall, it carves out on the wall, it leaves an imprint on the wall. The same thing with life and human body. Because we have vasanas, which we bring from the past and all these things, and because of karma, we have stained it. Right? So the body is gone. The Atma now goes through a process until it merges into the Supreme. Nobody knows how long that process is going to take. Nobody can answer that question. Achedo yam madahyo yam makledyo shosha evacha nitya saravagata hastanu achalo yam sanatanaha. It cannot be carved, the soul. It is incombustible. You could light any gas someone can try to get it to light, it cannot light. It is neither wetted nor dried. It is eternal. And the most interesting part of this, it is all pervading. All pervading means what? It is always there. If I lock up my house and I go out, and this is serious, when I come back after a long period of time and you open the door, you get a sense that my Father is there. It's all pervading. They never go anyway. They are always there. They're not there for the physical to see it. Just as you have a certain whistle that you blow when you train dogs. The dog could hear the sound of that whistle. The man who blowing it cannot hear it. How is that possible? And that is something physical and material. And yet you cannot experience it. So now you are talking about a soul. Right? Which is something you cannot even fathom. It is stable. It is immovable. And it is everlasting. Lord Krishna goes on to say, Avyakto yam achinto yam avikaryo yam uchyati tasmadevam vidita vainam Nanu sochi tumarahasi. Arjun, what I say to you now, it is said that the Atma is said to be unmanifested. It is unthinkable. It is immutable. Knowing this, Arjun, you should not grieve. If I take out a bucket of water from the ocean, how does that affect the ocean? It doesn't. The same way, Arjun, don't be affected by these things, because the soul is not affected by what is going to happen here. And you are linking, I worried about the soul of my ancestors, because that is one of the problems Arjun had in the beginning.
Yeah.
So you see, this is why Lord Krishna keep emphasizing on the soul, because that was the
Nothing
first,
will happen to the soul.
yeah, that was the first conflict in the mind of Arjun. What about the ancestors? He said, listen, this has nothing to do with ancestors. If somebody asks you to define God, could you define God? Nobody could define God. Unless you experience God yourself. Only then you could, and then you are limited. Then your knowledge is limited. In the same way, somebody who has never seen the ocean, and you ask you to describe the ocean for them, what are you going to tell him? Plenty salt water? What does that mean to me who never see it? Nobody knows what it is really.
Yes, that story I remember the Shankaracharya used to give of a frog or crapo.
In a well.
Eh?
Crapo in a well.
Yeah, and asking, when a crapo from the ocean says he's been to the ocean, and the crapo in the well says, he jumps and says, is the ocean as big as this? Then as big as that? And it's outside your experience. How can you explain it?
So that is why God will not condemn you. Because he gives you the opportunity to find him. He always gives you that opportunity.
And again, that's where, from a Hindu perspective, if you think of our philosophy, while we discuss, we never say anybody is wrong. Everybody has a perspective. I'm not saying everybody is right, but what we are saying is that nobody, from our perspective, could lay claim to have absolute knowledge and absolute certainty about God. It's as though someone saying, I know everything there is to know about God, and I am right and you are wrong. And this is what gives rise and has given rise to wars and religious conflicts worldwide. Panditji.
Atachainam nitya jatam nityam avamanyasi mritam tatapi tam mahabaho nainamasochitum arhasi. If you understand or you accept, Arjun, that the soul will go through birth and death many times.
You will experience birth and death many times.
Yeah. If you will experience birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, then all the more reason you should not grieve. You see, you talked Shankaracharya just now. The first Shankaracharya.
Adi Shankaracharya.
Adi Shankaracharya. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jataye shegam. Ehi sansare bahu dushatare, kripaya pahi, pahi murare, bhaj govindam. Bhaj govindam says, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, birth and death, birth and death. Right? Ehi sansare bahu dushatare. This life is a terrible thing to experience. How do you get out of it? Kripaya pahi pahi murari. That is what Hinduism is about. That is what Sanatana Dharma is about. An all-merciful God.
Which is why, as he's saying clearly, the people ask, what is the goal as a Hinduism? What is my goal?
24 karat.
Well, not that good too.
Not good goal.
But the idea, this idea of moksha, freedom, absolute removal from this cycle of birth and death, is
Total
our
freedom.
Ultimate goal.
Total freedom is the ultimate goal.
Is the ultimate
because
goal.
there are different types of salvation.
Yeah, that's another area to
Sayuja Mukti and so much different ones that have. But there is one that when you get it, that's it.
It's merged. You become the same as
You become the
divinity.
same as God.
Yeah. You
do-
lose an
You
individual
lose
identity.
yourself into God.
Yeah.
Now, Lord Krishna says to Arjun, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu Dhruvam janmritasya cha tasmad pariharya arte nattvamasuchitum arhasi. Death is certain for that which is born. Birth is certain for that which is dead. It's a continuing cycle, Arjun. You should never grieve over the inevitable. Do not grieve for things that you cannot change. You cannot change birth and death. The only cure for birth, the only cure for death is not to be born. Once you're not born, you're not going to die. But once you're born, you're going to die.
And unless you achieve salvation, when you die, you will be reborn.
It will be a constant.
You will be reborn.
It's a constant play.
And once you are reborn, you will die again. And when you die again, you will be reborn again. If you look at the world, and if you just use a quick example, I want our viewers to think every single thing in this world is cyclical. Night follows day, follows night, follows day.
Never change.
Never changes. So everything else is cyclical in the world. But we want to say life is linear. Panditji.
Yeah. See, we say that once the body ceases to function, it is called death. Now you have perfect death and you have imperfect death. Perfect death means I have lived the perfect life, so when I die now, it have no coming back. And then you have the imperfect death, that I lie on my bed dying and still worrying about, boy, who I will leave this house to, boy, who go handle my property and who go handle my wealth. That is a recipe for disaster. You're coming back, but you're not coming back with a bang. You're coming back slipping down the hill. You're going further and further back into birth. And that is not what life is about. There are certain verses when we explain it further, we will explain it. Now, there is a verse in the Mahabharata, and it is very interesting. This verse says, Jata sahi dhruvo mrityu dhruva janmritasya cha tasmad pariharya arti natvam sochitum arhasi. Once you are born, you're going to die. Once you are dead, you're going to be born again. Now the Mahabharata says it, aham yahani bhutani gachanti gayamalayam tesha stiratoma ichchami kashtarya mahataparam. Every day you see people dying. Every day. Those who are alive witness this every single day, this phenomena that is called death. And yet they do not believe in their mind that they're going to die.
It will happen to them.
The Mahabharata says that is something a person deserves to laugh at. That is going to be the biggest joke in the Mahabharata. That you are seeing this death and yet you believe you will not die. I mean...
Oh, you don't live as though you recognize you will die.
Well, how egotistic you could be.
Yeah.
The very next verse says, Avyakta dini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidananyeva tatlaka paridevana. All beings, Arjun. In the origin, they were unmanifested. And in the mid-state, they become manifested. And in the end, they become unmanifested again. What is the point in grieving over this? The human body, the human has been given 3 bodies, as a matter of fact. You worry about this one? You have 3 to worry about. One is called the gross body, which is made up of the elements. Then you have the subtle body, which is made up of the 5 pranas, or the 5 life airs. And then you have the causal body, which is made up of karma from past life and sanskar to carry forward into that was carried forward from a previous life. So 3 different bodies you have. You think it's one body you have? You don't have one body. You have 3. The nice thing about the 3 bodies that you have, none belong to you. So Lord Krishna says to Arjun, Acharyavat pashyati kashtinedam Acharya vadati tateva chanyaha Acharya vachena manye shrinoti Shrutva payenam vedana chaiva kashtet. People have described the Atma as being wonderful. Some have mentioned it to be marvelous. Some people hear about it It is strange. And yet nobody knows what it is. So you are talking about something that you don't even know what it is. Describe the soul. Oh, it's a wonderful thing. Describe the soul. Oh, it's marvelous. Describe the soul. It's a strange thing, boy. But that doesn't tell us what it is. Whatever adjective you use to describe the soul, you cannot describe it because you do not know it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain facts we have to face. Dehi nityam vado yogyam deho saravasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani nattvamasochitam arhasi. That indwella, Arjun, in all bodies is said to be invulnerable. Do not grieve over these things, Arjun. When you go to sleep in the night and you're dreaming somebody come with a hacksaw and sawing out your neck, you're bawling for pain in your dream. When you wake up and you jump out of your sleep, you're totally sweat down and your heart palpitating, your heart beating faster than it could ever beat. And it's only when you calm down you realize it's a dream. But in the dream, what were you experiencing is real. In the dream, in real, it doesn't exist. But it has an effect on you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Swadharama piyacha viksha na vikampitum arhasi dharmadhi yuddhatreyo na kshatriyasya na vidyate. Oh Arjun, sorry. Look at yourself. You see, now Lord Krishna is now putting the ball in the court of Arjun. All the time you're making noise and you're talking about this and all kind of thing you're talking about, I had to listen to you. Lord Krishna now says to him, look at yourself now.
Swadharma.
Swadharma. Look at yourself, Arjun. Look at your duty.
What is your duty? Yeah.
You have to decide that now. This is your call. Do not waver from your duty. The message is, do not give up your responsibility. You know, we have been faced with, I've been hearing this since I was a little child growing up. When I was growing up in primary school, you had a lot of children, you know, you used to have a little, it's a pin on your crochet.
A badge?
Not a badge, no. For Mother's Day, there's a print, and everybody should buy one. They give some schools to give it for free. A little Mother's Day thing they print on you. For Father's Day, they give you one. For Mother's Day, they give you one.
None for Children's Day?
They did not Children's Day in those days. And what was strange, everybody got the same color red, except the guy whose mother has died. He gets a black one.
Okay.
So that's how we knew his mother died.
Okay.
You were not allowed to talk about it. You know, some children like to make prank on other people's children. Oh, you are no mother and father. That is true. A lot of people have no mother and father. That is true. And look what we end up with today because of that. Nothing in the home. Look what that has caused this country. So much, I'm using this word loosely, wayward children becoming wayward teenagers, wayward young people, wayward middle-agers, if they live to become middle-aged. Mm-hmm. Right? Only in the last 48 hours, 6 people under the age of 20 have been shot by the police. All under the age of 20. One is a 16-year-old boy with his school bag and book and everything. Look what caused this. The family didn't know. The family hear it on somebody, I don't know much about technology, WhatsApp. Mm-hmm. Right? Somebody WhatsApp and they see it. So your son or the child who you're minding died and you don't even know. So this is what he says. You cannot forsake your duty. If you do not want to have children, that is your choice. If you want to have children, that is also your choice. But having children has swadharma with it. It has a responsibility with it. And when does that responsibility end? Some people believe once the child reaches 18, he becomes an adult, so my responsibility done. That is in America. While I was coming up here today, I was listening on the radio to all the nice food I must eat to be healthy. Strawberry, blueberry, blackberry, none of which Trinidad have. What happened to guava? What happened to cherry? You know, Caribbean cherry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What happened to the Suriname cherry? That have more, the West Indian cherry have more vitamin than vitamin C. But we prefer to eat strawberry because that's foreign. Hey, everything in this country foreign. You get married foreign too. You are losing swadharma. When you forsake your duty, you have to understand the complications that come with it. It's not just for you. These complications are generational things. So Lord Krishna is saying to Arjun, look at your swadharma, Arjun. Do not waver. There is nothing in this world more welcoming for a warrior than a righteous war. That is the great, all warriors live for that day. And here you are wavering, Arjun. You are turning away from it. Yadvichaya chopapananam swaragadvara yapabritam sukina kshatriyaha partha labante yuddhamidrisham. Happy are those warriors, Arjun, who get the opportunity to be a part of this righteous war. This war is not a war for land. This is not a war for no kingdom. This is a war of righteousness against unrighteousness. And if you have the opportunity to change something that is wrong and you refuse to do it, then you are part of the wrong. So Lord Krishna is telling him, this is not a war you set about looking for. Arjun didn't choose this war. Decision for this war was made by Duryodhana. I will not give them enough land that will pass through the eye of a needle. And if they want, they have to fight for it. So he made the decision to fight. You didn't ask to fight. And now that the war has come, this war has opened up the heavenly plains, Arjun. Do not shun this war. Atachetva mimamadharayam sangramam nakarishyati tatsvadaramam makiriti cha hitva papamavapyasi. If you do not wage this war, Arjun, you will forfeit your duty. And that is what Sanatana Dharma is about.
Duty.
Duty. There is a verse coming up, Karamanyavadikaraste mapalechu kadacha, emphasizes the performance of duty. Everybody has a duty to perform. You cannot forsake your duty. You could forsake the rewards, but not the duty. Do not forsake this war, Arjun. You will incur great sin. When people live good in this world and they die and they go, people still praise them. Mahatma Gandhi died before you were born.
Must be.
Must be? If you was around, you couldn't be around in a different body. But yet people still talk about Mahatma Gandhi. Right? People still talk about the good that exists. And when you forfeit that good, you become a Hitler. And when you become a Hitler, Arjun, you are shunned. I don't think anybody in their right mind will name a child Hitler. Right? Imagine you have a grandson born in Tularasi. Will you name him Ravan? The Rasi name start with the letter Ra.
Yeah.
You won't name him Ravan?
You won't. Yeah.
Because of what Ravan symbolizes. If he born in Mithun Rasi, you won't call him Kumkaran either.
Yeah.
And worse, if it's a granddaughter, you're definitely not going to call she Kekai.
Because those names not used anymore. Yeah.
No, those names symbolize something that is anti-duty. So we give them names that will bring them honor. When you hear the name, you hear honor.
Yeah. You instill honor. You instill a sense of.
Yes.
I
mean, I have a grandson and I name him Hanuman. And this fella limping and walking and he weak. He shouldn't have that name. When you a name like Vickramaditya, when you hear a tiger roaring, man, the name symbolizes something. That is what Sanatana Dharma does to its followers.
While it's not the topic of our conversation, our viewers and those of you who are going to have children, it's important to give your children proper Hindu names.
But you see what we are doing here? He's talking about honor.
Yeah. No, but the whole concept of naming also, as it comes up in this context. You know, we are in a society where many times pressures were brought on us, sometimes overtly, to change your name. I remember as a child in school, teacher told me, Mani what? I can't call you that. I will call you Paul. I said, no, my name is Maniedeo. If you can't say Maniedeo, it's a problem with your ability to pronounce. But many of our people have made that mistake of, giving into these things. So I just wanted to, as we mentioned name, raise this issue. It's not directly in the context of what Krishna Bhagwan is talking about, but the importance of keeping our Hindu names.
You think about having a name like Vickramaditya in San Fernando Government School.
What is to call you, Vic?
Vaporub. Nobody knew. Up to now, people don't know my name.
Yeah.
If I go in the bank to transact business and they tell them a name, they watch me like if I land from Mars or something.
Yeah.
Right?
But this is a topic. I mean,
what I'm saying, the name of a person tells you the character of the person, right?
Or what they're aspiring for.
The name tells you what the person is. A name like Arjun means a man whose honor is pure. Right?
Krishna, sum total of all opulence.
That's right. A name like Vickramaditya. Aditya is who? The sun. Vikram means the powerhouse. Right? So with the name, I mean, in a Hindu society, from the time you hear the name Vickramaditya, they look up at you. They figure they know you as a warrior lord. But the same is in Arjun. Do not give up that honor. That is your honor.
And when you name your child with a name that has tremendous history and value, you also encourage that child to live up to those values.
To those expectations. Right.
Panditji, we have to stop it here. We are at the end of our time for this program again. And what verse are we at?
We are at verse 33.
At verse 33, chapter 2.
Yeah.
We will continue from this point where Arjun is being now spoken to by Sri Krishna, encouraging him to perform his duty. As we conclude this program, this idea of swadharma, performing your duty, I am sure we want that to resonate with everyone. You determine what your duties are. You must know what your duties are. I know what my duties are. When I am unsure of my duty, as Sri Krishna does, with Arjuna, he speaks to him. Panditji, any final word on duty as we conclude?
Well, we were all born, we are all here, and we make a mistake when we tell people duty and responsibility. Duty and responsibility is two totally different things, but they work together. It's a very thin line. So people need to sit down back in their homes. I've always said that. I don't know which family could sit down on the table together and have breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I don't know which house that's happening right now. So we pull it apart.
It's difficult, yeah.
It's pulling apart. So we need to gradually pull it back in. If it's for 1 day in the week, I'll start with 1 day in the week. And then let us discuss in our own homes, what is my duty? What is my responsibility? And we could coordinate it together as a family.
And we develop.
And we could proceed further.
Actually, what we also suggest to families, to Hindu families, I'm speaking to directly here now, particularly, and others who wish to develop the practice, at least once a week, do Havan in your home. And at least once a week, attend your temple. Get attached to a temple. And develop your knowledge of Bhagwan, Sri Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, and your traditions and values. Panditji, at this point we will conclude. I thank all of you for joining us. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can please contact by telephone 652-1043, or you can WhatsApp 784-9880. I thank you for viewing. Until next time, Jai Shri Krishna.